Hello, welcome to Legendary and Green Team, where we talk about, books and other like speculative fiction, fantasy, science fiction, etc. Welcome to our Infinite Jest series. This is our fourth and final episode, and Chesky is cheering inside his heart right now.
Very much so.
And I am Hurinfan, and I'm joined with Chesky
Hey,
and Ashman.
Hi, everybody.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be done, though. I mean, truthfully, really don't know if I understood any of this section. I understood parts of Gately, and then the ending. I'm just lost and confused. And I may reread just like half of this section again, just to see if I pick it up a little better. But
Really?
other than that,
Wow.
no. Well, I mean, like literally just the last half, like the last half of this last section. So like starting at like 80% to the 88% mark just to try and just because either I was reading it too late at night or it was just too confusing and I've got lots of other life stuff going on that just made me unaware and unable to really comprehend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ash, how about you?
Yeah, I'm satisfied to be done this book. Um, I, I probably enjoyed this section like the second least out of the ones that
Hmm.
we read.
Second least.
Um, yeah, which is not to
See?
say I think it was bad. Yeah, like the ending is obviously kind of whack. And it's not even like one of those unresolved endings that is still like it's not one of those ambiguous endings that feels like things are resolved. It feels like things are building and then he cuts it off. And yeah,
Hmm.
I get that we do get some information past the ending, but yeah, even so, I did I did unfortunately give in to my baser impulses and um, did a little bit of research on this online before after I'd finished, but I try to cut that off pretty quickly. So I do have some more information on what went on than I initially did,
Hmm.
but I also reread some sections
Okay.
um, for more information.
How did you find them? I find like browsing this book so difficult.
Yeah.
So I reread the beginning, the
Hmm.
first chapter, and then I searched for the section where Gately had that dream about digging up the corpse of
Ah,
JOI.
there's not a lot there.
There's not a lot there, but hey, I'll take it. I
I'll say,
yeah.
one thing I could say is that this, in my life, I used to be able to just sit and read a book, for an hour or so, right? You'd find time to just, you're not going on doing anything and be able to read it. And I feel like that is what this book requires of me, at least, is that I'd have to have like a dedicated amount of time that I'm reading it, and I have to have full focus on this book. And that's not to say it's bad, but in my life right now, where I'm at, I have 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here,
Hmm.
where I love being able to just pull open a book on my phone and be like, I can read for 15 minutes, I can hit a chapter and be done. But I can't do this with this book. This book is much too, it's just not the way it's written. I have to like really dedicate more time to it and really think about it. It made it harder for me to read it because I'd want to read it in a little bit, but I'd read one paragraph and that's all the time I had for. And by the time I get back to it, I'm like, oh, I've forgotten everything in this paragraph. And the weird chapters really messes me up too, where it's just like I can't. It's such you have to like use the search function to find anything because you're like, well, I can't just go. It's in chapter 15 or 14. You have to be like, okay, I think this is what happened right before, but maybe it was this other person's. I mean, it just made it harder for me to read this book, and that's part of why I didn't like it as
That's fair.
much. I might have liked it better if I'd had more time and stuff to really
Maybe a
dedicate
little
to
bit.
it.
I doubt much more. Sorry, Chesky.
No, that I understand my feelings about this book. I'm just trying to offer a little bit of a defense for the book side of it. That like I think
No,
if I'd
like
had,
I get what you're
more
saying.
like yeah.
Um, I love books like that, and I love books where you have to. I shouldn't say have to, but you should reread it to like get a better experience. But for either of those things, you need to at least enjoy the book in the first place. Because who's gonna go back and read a book they didn't like? But yeah, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, spending like reading this book in 15-minute increments does sound like it would, yeah, it would definitely worsen the experience like a lot for me, I think, because even though the book intentionally breaks its own rhythm so often, it still helps to be in a rhythm while you read it.
Right. I mean, that's the book he wanted to write, obviously, and he wrote it, and that's so.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's just the way it is. Like, really, like it is what it is. Yeah. So.
Mhm.
All right, so what should we start discussing first? Do you want
We
to
should
talking
start
about
discussing about like the fact that JOI is like the worst dad, I think, just ever. This guy is just terrible.
Go on.
I mean, so okay, I do like his conversation, the conversation he has with Gately, like the wraith with Gately. Um,
Yeah.
that was really illuminating as to like what was going on in his head. And yeah, I understand what he's trying to do for Hal, but the way that he's trying to go about helping Hal is terrible. And like he makes like a statement, it's like any communication between a father and son is better than none. And I don't know, like clearly these actions lead to Hal just being like a non-functional person at the end, like or in chapter 1. He's not able to communicate with anybody anymore, like in any way. So yeah, what JOI did to him was that's just kind of like a monstrous thing. I get you want to talk to your son or save your son from a lifetime of isolation, but like even so, I mean, there's better ways, man.
I agree, on all fronts, but I think it's debatable whether or not Hal is actually in a worse position because before he was functional, but he wasn't there. He like he had problems, right? It's just the only people who could see them were JOI and Mario, seemingly, right?
And penniless.
But we get his interior monologue starting at the end of the book after he quits marijuana for some reason.
Yeah.
And it's in a bad position. Before that, it's always from the outside looking in. We finally get the inside. If we compare those to the first chapter, despite being unable to communicate and giving these animal grunts and sounds, and strange, incredible movements instead of, actually communicating, he seems like in a much better state of mind, if that makes sense.
I think he has like bigger problems to deal with than worrying about his drug use.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot different problems. I don't know if either one of them is better
So
than the
I
other
agree.
one.
I agree. It's terrible. So what do you think caused this thing in Hal? Because last time we see Hal inside the book, he seems fine, right? At least, I mean, other than going through withdrawals and having problems, but
This specific thing is the one that I don't know if I call it spoiled, but that I learned about online.
Oh, really? Okay. What did you learn?
Yeah.
At least according to this one reader, that the Wraith JOI spread DMZ on Hal's toothbrush, and what we're seeing was
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah. So I guess it was mentioned earlier in the book that DMZ is something that feeds on like mold. Like it's something. Yeah,
it's a mold on mold.
It's a mold on mold. Yeah. So the mold that Hal ate at the start of the book, which he thinks is maybe what caused his problems, or at least that's the impression that he has. Like maybe this is just a metaphorical thing.
Well, it's mentioned like the second thing in the book. Like he has that thing with the dean's office, and then it's like the flashback to his childhood. My son ate this. My son ate this.
Yes, and
so it seems pretty important. The DMZ.
Yeah, it said that James had two plans for, or sorry, originally he meant for Hal to watch the Infinite Jest while under the influence of DMZ, or something like that, to kind of open him up.
I see.
While the Infinite Jest was in the it's inaccessible to Hal, obviously. So James was just like, I'll just do this measure instead, and he was looking around the school, and this is why things were all disturbed in the school, because this was James looking for the DMZ or whatnot, and then eventually he finds it, and then spreads it on Hal's toothbrush, and then Hal is starting to be under the effects of it in the last chapter.
Oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. I never considered that.
This makes sense, except for, I mean, this, again, remember, I don't really understand anything I was reading this one, but even wanting a better life for my son, I don't think I could be like, you know what? Mold. That's the solution for my son. Mold on his toothbrush. That, I mean, just from a purely layman point of view, I can't see myself ever following that conclusion all the way out. Or like, let me just give him drugged up and that'll fix his insecurities. There's other better ways. Like loving communication between me and my son.
Do you think you actually ever watched the Infinite Jest then?
Hal, no, because there's
No.
in Gately's flash forward or his premonition or whatever, Hal is screaming
it's
that
not
it's
there.
not there. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's holding up James's skull, which is like a direct reference to Hamlet.
Yeah.
Which is actually
That's
why I
probably a
remember
problem.
that scene later. It's like, oh, hey, look, Hamlet.
I suppose if you're an optimist, you could just hope that, like, if JOI's plan works, he just needs to see the Infinite Jest and it'll go away.
And there's many copies of the Infinite Jest around.
They're
I guess, at
everywhere,
this point,
yeah.
So.
Well, actually, I like that theory. I never considered that. I just figured that he saw the Infinite Jest and that's what messed him up. But because he ingested the DMZ as a child, it had been, I don't know, cultivating inside of his body the whole time. And maybe by quitting marijuana, it activated it. And that's why he's been so messed up. I noticed that Pemulus's DMZ had been stolen, but I didn't know where it had gone. But I like that reader theory. There's also a theory that JOI possessed Hal. And that is why they are so messed up.
Interesting.
Well,
It's your supernatural theory that it is supernatural.
Well, I mean, how else could you explain the Wraith?
It's a hallucination. I don't know. It's
Okay, there's no way that it could be a hallucination because precisely of what Gately
What-
and the
what
Wraith
it's
talk
saying.
to each other, right?
Yeah.
So when the Wraith is talking, it is obviously somebody who's incredibly well educated and knows a lot about a lot of different topics. Basically, just exactly how JOI has been introduced to us until that point in the book. And Gately's thinking to himself, "I've never heard these words before in my life. Did he just say like something stupid?" And then, so I'm reasonably sold on the fact that it actually is JOI instead of that. Plus, the hints that we've gotten to the Wraith's existence before then were, was it Stice? Yeah, Stice's rooms and his object have been flying around. Plus, I think it was Stice who had his forehead stuck to the window.
Yeah,
he did get his forehead stuck to
That was like
the
Looney Tunes stuff.
That was Looney Tunes. Oh man! And he got his face ripped off, right?
Yeah. It was disgusting.
Why would JOI do that to Stice?
Because he wants to. I think he was possessing Stice at that moment, and he wanted to interface with Hal.
Gotcha. So like periodically throughout the book, JOI would be possessing different characters in an attempt to talk with Hal or maybe Orin or whoever.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. It was interesting the way that JOI talked about Hal as like his most gifted or like his only child that was like worth anything.
I don't get it. Yeah, I really don't get that because he got Mario.
Yeah.
And he liked Mario, at least seen from the outside, right? And Mario was obviously gifted. I don't get it. I agree. He's not a very good dad. Although he did quit. Why do you think he killed himself?
Because the same reason that Pemulus was saying that Hal needed to be addicted to something, right? So he was, like he was a functional alcoholic, and alcohol was giving him something that he like a feeling of authenticity or whatever that he was unable to get in his normal life, and he just had that addictive personality, and without something to be addicted to, then he just couldn't cope anymore.
That's as good theory as any.
Yeah.
I think CS killed him.
Who?
Charles Tavis.
Oh.
CT, sorry. Just because of the Hamlet parallels, and because he stuck his head in a microwave, which isn't exactly easy, and the fact that I think generally when people quit an addiction and they put all that effort into quitting an addiction, they usually do it as a means to live a better life. And he'd been sober for over 90 days by that point. So
Because he
it
was
seems
making
like,
the Infinite Jest for Hal, right?
yeah, he quit it. He made the Infinite Jest, and then supposedly he killed himself. But I like the idea that CT did it.
I guess I would posit in my again weak understanding that he'd made the Infinite Jest. He fulfilled his goal for Hal. He didn't, and then along with the no addiction and such, that he was like, I'm done. I can be done.
I can move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works.
I mean, it's a horrible thought, but like, yes, that's
It is a
it's
horrible
like, yes,
thought.
I've made one movie for my son. This will fix all of his problems and make him happy. Like, that's over.
I
Should have
mean,
stuck around. And it's all like,
yeah,
yeah,
there's
he's the
that
bad
Kate
dad.
Gompert section where it's like talking about psychotic depression and, why the reason why people in burning buildings jump is not because they're not afraid of falling.
Hmm.
Maybe
Right.
James had something like that. Maybe there's a parallel between James and that guy who'd been psychotically depressed for 19 years.
Mm. The train set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if it had anything to do with James's father. You know, his father wanted to be a movie actor
And a
And-
tennis player.
and a tennis player, yes, and he was both. And then James became a tennis player or tennis instructor, really, and he made movies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think JOI is the narrator.
That would make sense.
I could see that. Yeah.
I think the way he describes talking to Gately about existence as a wraith sounds like an author head hopping, and you're given a subjective perspective from the inside of someone's head, but at the same time you're allowed to make these interjections or make endnotes, which seem to be written in a certain style of a highly educated individual with authority, and JOI seemed to have that authority. Also, other than the Hal sections near the end after he quit marijuana, I believe the only sections in the book that are in the first person are JOI's sections. I think he has two flashbacks when he's a kid, and those are first person, like I, which also gives people the idea that maybe he possessed Hal, and that's why Hal's sections after he quit marijuana and at the first scene of the book are in first person.
Interesting.
That's an interesting thought. They use.
I don't like
first
that
person
theory.
at the very beginning. Yeah.
I prefer the idea that he was messed up with the DMZ, and that
He needs Infinite Jest to cure
he
him.
need, yeah.
Is it
Or-
has the author ever clarified anything, or he just kind of just said, "I'm not answering anything about it" after he wrote it?
No, I think a lot of the readers just get enjoyment
Get
from
addicted
trying
to
yeah
solving
to yeah they get enjoyment from trying to solve the problems and putting the pieces together and whatnot. So he doesn't want to ruin that experience. It's very Gene Wolfe of him.
Sure. I was just wondering if he'd ever said one way or another on anything.
I don't think so. I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, it wouldn't
I'm not
surprise
sure.
me that he had just written it and then just said, "I'm never answering anything about it ever," aside from like where you can buy it and such. Like that seems very like him from the book to do.
But I think Ash, you said you wish there was more Lyle in the book.
Yes.
I agree. Lyle is like a clear indicator of wraith-like existence and extra body experiences, and being able to not only physically float but be in two places on a different plane. Because he licked Gately's forehead, right, when he was in the hospital, despite not being there.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, yeah. One of those long sections of Gately's weird fever dreams. Lyle comes to him and licks sweat from his forehead.
Yeah.
I don't know if that. I need to read a theory about the sweat because I don't understand the sweat.
Why he's licking sweat.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's a way for him to connect with people.
yeah. Maybe it's like absorbing the essence of a person,
Yeah.
gives him some sort of insight into their psychosis. I don't know.
I just kind of like his section because like the one section where he's like dispensing advice to students because it like does feel like just like some grounded wisdom for the most part.
Yeah.
Even though he was incorrect about what was happening with Stice.
Never underestimate objects. Objects make up most of the world.
Hmm. Yes. And symbols create us, not the other way around. Um, I quite liked the ending to Oren's story. That was very 1984. Like that was
uh,
a pretty direct parallel, I think.
nobody deserves it more, in my opinion. That's another thing. I believe Orin is the reason why the Infinite Jest is actually promulgating across the Onin.
Why is that? Because he sent the
I believe
stuff
he
to.
sent the Infinite Jest to the medical attaché first. In some of the early chapters, it's implied that Avril was sleeping with the medical attaché, and if you go back and look at it, Orin, or he gets a package that says "Happy Anniversary" on it. So
Gotcha.
I think Orin was angry at him for his mother sleeping with him, and he killed him with the Infinite Jest.
Yeah, Oren's a real piece of work.
It's awful. Oh, Orin, or what's his
Yeah.
name? Who's that guy that kills cats and dogs?
I don't
Lens?
remember.
Lens,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah, Randy Lenz.
Randy
Yeah.
Lens. Those are the two worst characters in the book, in my opinion.
Oh,
Yes.
I thought you were going to say that Lens was the other one you thought might be sending the Infinite Jest out, and I was going to say, I don't think that's remotely likely to be what's happening.
Yeah, he doesn't possess the faculties at all. Um,
Yeah,
But JOI did create the Infinite Jest, which is responsible for a lot of problems.
yeah,
most of the
I
problems I
suppose he
would
thought that
suppose.
if he kept it in his skull, then nobody else would see it except for the person he wants to. But that didn't work.
well, like who did he even know what he was doing? Joel seems to think that no, he didn't.
No,
But
he
then,
seems to just lucked in quotes into creating this piece of art.
yeah, and she was talking about like how ironic he usually was, and if he was making this, like he was saying these things about this art, he would have been joking because that's what he always did. I'm curious if Joel would be like would have the same reaction to watching the Infinite Jest that everyone else did.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Um,
I suspect to her it would just be another movie, and probably not a very
I
good one.
I think before he quit alcohol, it would have been like that. But I think by going to AAA, it kind of kills the irony inside of him, and he's looking
Hmm.
for something more sincere and more heartfelt and not so cynical, maybe. And so maybe from her, who doesn't know him that well off of alcohol, I think he was trying to create something that was sincere, and I guess alcohol had been holding him back all of these years, and he creates this piece of pinnacle entertainment, something that he'd been chasing all his life but couldn't get there, and then ruined it by making it so good.
I guess that's maybe something that makes the Infinite Jest special. It's like it's this work of art that has absolute sincerity to it, which I'm wondering if it would have the same effect on someone who was living a fulfilled life already. You know, like who felt like they were being authentic with people and had an authentic existence. Like, what if Lyle watched the Infinite Jest? I don't think that he would be affected. I think that who gets affected by Infinite Jest is probably highly contextual. Like the medical attaché, obviously was not living a very fulfilled life.
Right. People who have desires. That's what it seems like it affects. Like you have a desire for something better. Very nebulous as to what better means. And then that's what gets you.
Yeah, if you're burning for food that doesn't exist, maybe that's the thing. Yeah,
Keep it away from Lamont Chu.
yeah, exactly. Or like the crocodiles. Like maybe the crocodiles would also not be affected by it because they have gone through this the addiction, and they're just kind of like they seem content with their lives at this point. They've just kind of accepted what they can control, what they can't control, and just like they're happy with their cars and smoking a lot.
So do you think Mario would be affected if he had watched The Infinite Jest?
I don't think so.
I
I
really
think
don't
Mario
think
would just be
so.
like looking at the lens technique and be like, "That's cool."
I agree.
That's what I think. I just curious. So it's a very
Oh,
thought I had.
yeah, how wonderful was that section of was it the dentist who pretended to be homeless and just asked people for
It was the
touching?
head instructor at the at school, right?
Was it an instructor at school?
I thought so. Yeah, because it was or head coach or something, and it was like relating what his life was like, and then he didn't. His entire family, like his mom, just wanted one of them to be a priest.
Yes,
And
that's it. Yeah.
yeah, he had that bet with his brother, so I can just get one person to touch me. Yeah, that was really good. I really enjoyed that.
All the other homeless people noticing how just by asking people to touch him and they don't want to touch him, they'd give him money instead.
Yeah,
He doesn't want money. He doesn't need money. He just wants people to touch him. And so all the homeless people take his lead and they just start asking people to touch him. And it goes on and on and on like this. And he says he's going to give up priesting because he's lost faith in humanity. And finally, it's just little Mario who holds out his hand to him.
He comes out and shakes everyone's hands, just unironically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually a perfect ending to that particular story. I would be happy if the book ended there, honestly, rather than the weird hallucination with Gately.
Well, it's a very annular book, and I think he wanted to start the book off with somebody who had a very rich interior life who could not communicate, and end the book with somebody with who has a lot of stuff going on internally but could not communicate as well.
I guess.
But I agree. I think that last scene with Mario holding out would have been better.
Because then it would be a scene with someone successfully reaching out to another person. You know, it would be kind of a more hopeful end.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than Gately getting drugged against his will and concerned that he's going to relapse now.
How was that that flashback of Gately and getting high in the house, trying to save somebody, basically becoming a giant toddler who couldn't do anything, while someone gets what was their eyelids sewn open?
Oh yeah, like Fackelman? Was it?
Very, creepy.
I suppose that was his lowest point and why he decided to get sober.
Yeah. There were elements of Gately's story that I enjoyed here. All those flashbacks to his thugging days, I didn't quite enjoy. I liked the girl who started following around because she thought he was like a white knight, and he's like her knight in shining armor because he wouldn't take advantage of her when she was passed out.
Mm.
Like a very low bar, right? I thought it was
of the liver.
Yeah. I thought it was quite sad, the story of how he was actually a really good football player, and for a while he was a functioning drug addict, but it kind of fell apart when his mom got hospitalized.
It's a very tragic story, Gately.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he did a lot of bad stuff, but
I mean, he's gonna get away with he's not gonna get his parole violated.
Yeah, the DA, he came by and he wanted to apologize because he was in DA, or he was in AA as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't AA. It was like a subgroup that was
something like AA, where you have to go around and you have to acknowledge people who have wronged you, and you have to apologize to them, and he just couldn't do it. It was so hard.
It's like a support group for people with spouses who have compulsive disorders.
Ah, that's it. Yeah, that makes sense. Poopsie.
Mm-hmm.
Pooksy? I forgot his
I
do not envy her.
$1 million, unfortunately.
That the AA group that Hal went to, or maybe it was NA, I don't remember.
Oh, that was just weird.
It was
he's I'm in the wrong AA group. This is a group for adult men to be.
Yeah, it wasn't even AA or NA. It was just the wrong group of people who are wanting to be children again.
Emotional support or something, yeah.
Go out
you have to go to him. He's not coming to you. Your parents will never come to you. Your parents hate you. Reach out to him first. I was cringing on the inside. If they like that and it helps them feel better about their life, that's great. But I would be the same as Hal. Is it okay if I just scoot my chair back an inch at a time until I'm out the back door and gone? Or do I have to stand up and make a scene and leave? Or that was a scene.
I was thinking the whole time. I woke up. I grew up with a mother who was telling me constantly that she loved me, and I can tell you, it doesn't feel anything like this. This is not what you guys are looking for.
Yeah. The moment of horror when he thinks that the guy is pointing at him for affirmation.
Oh, that was so funny. He's like, what? No. Then they all said the other guy's name.
Yeah, I could feel the panic. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, kind of a motif of people turning into babies,
Yeah,
giant babies, adult men
giant
as
babies.
babies, literal
I
mutant
mean, if you
giant
watch
babies.
Infinite Jest, you baby, right? Like,
I suppose in the sense that you'll have to rely on other people to keep you alive. Or I'd
well,
say
I
you're
mean,
at that point you're even worse than a baby,
yeah,
functionally
I
speaking.
don't know. Yeah, it struck me as a slight parallel just because once you watch it, you're basically, or like maybe a newborn more, where you're very comatose and you're just kind of staring at one thing, you're doing one thing, and that's it. But yeah, probably worse because you're older,
There's several
heavier.
times in the book where people are looking outside of bars and they're likened to like standing on the side of a crib looking outside for your mother,
Hmm.
um, and
That
being
ties into the
unable to
subject,
walk and not
Infinite
able to
Jest
move.
itself, right?
Yeah, that is part of the Infinite Jest itself. But like in Gately's section, he was toddling. They literally described the way that he could walk across the room as toddling, and he would fall, and he would just like he would fight the pavement or something like they said like that.
So many things.
Given
I'll probably
um,
you guys.
given the thing about the Infinite Jest being like Joelle apologize, like playing the role of Death, who is your mother in the next life. Um, I think I do buy your theory here in that um, Avril is the head of the AFR, because she kills Orin, or sorry, seems to kill Orin in this book. Um, yeah, what that means for, I don't know, what Orin's gonna be born into the next life, I'm not sure, but
I also think that they have a sexual relationship.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, you did bring
I
that
saw
up
that
last
online.
time. Yeah, so weird
Mm,
though. That would be.
yeah, ugh, gross.
Yeah, please. Let's talk about something else for a second here. Let's go back to the babies for a second here.
Babies are
I,
cute, especially when they're giant men who could barely walk because they're high.
Mario kind of looks like a baby,
That's
like a
another
kind
thing,
of
yeah.
horrifying baby. But yeah, he might be the most virtuous character in the book, but it's not like a straight up virtue, given that he can't feel pain.
Mm. Might be the first viewer
Yeah.
choice, and he also might be a product of incest.
Between CT and Avril,
Yeah, it's never made clear whether they're actually step brother and sister or half brother and sister.
right?
But
But
they mention her helping him change his diapers and raise him, which is also weird.
Well,
yeah,
I guess that would partially explain why JOI felt so comfortable talking with Mario and being with Mario versus Hal and Orin, right? Because he
And maybe
doesn't.
that's why he considers Hal to be his like best son.
because
Yeah,
Mario
yeah,
isn't.
But Mario's not
because
actually his son.
Mario might not actually be or something like that would line
I'm
up
almost
with what we
certain
thought.
CT is because I think they described like the shape of CT's head and Mario's similarly, and also I think CT's mother had homodontal teeth like Mario does,
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah.
like a dolphin.
There's a lot of things in this book that I'm never going to pick up because I'm not going to reread it.
There's a lot of things I'm still picking up. I
So,
don't imagine I'll reread for a while though.
yeah. I did slightly enjoy Mario and Hal talking to each other at night, and Mario being like, "You're on your side again. You get all pontificous and loudmouth, and you use big words when you're on your side. Can you go back to your back? You use simple words and just tell me how you're feeling." And Hal's like, "Well, let me tell you all about Pemulus, and let me just pretend like I know." Like, it was, you guys read it, you know what it's like. It was just,
It was nice.
yeah,
Mario sections are the best in the book. I'm sorry. Like I love the really terrible things that make me cringe and make me empathize with drug addicts, and I love the exciting stuff with the AFR and them killing people, and I love the bits and pieces and piecing together the story, and I love the interior, I love the themes, but like Mario are my favorite parts, like because they make my heart warm and they make me cry a little bit. That's why I read mostly, but I love him so much.
My favorite parts are probably the first Kate Gompert, the game of Eschaton. I liked the conversation Gately had with the Wraith and the little Hamlet scene. I liked Orin's death. Um, couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. And I think
Nope,
I like the first chapter the most.
for sure, it's really good.
yeah. I really liked the first chapter. It was great. And then it was all downhill from there. I was expecting a semi-coherent story in a slightly linear fashion with, two, maybe 3 point of views. And
I think, yeah.
that was not obviously what I got, but
No.
there's good parts and there's tougher parts, and there's a lot of hinting and misdirection almost that it feels like you have to really
there's a lot of misdirection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I would like the story more if it had been more focused. I think that there's like quite a lot that I would get rid of, and that would make me like it's like the edit of The Hobbit that trims it down to like a regular, like instead of 3 movies, it's just 1 movie now. I think I would like someone to do that to the Infinite Jest.
I'm not gonna lie and say that I think every section is important or that I even enjoyed every section, but on a reread, it's a lot more than you think. I think.
I would say that every section is important for the way he wrote it in this style. But I think if you wanted to write a different story, a slightly more coherent story, or less purposely challenging story to challenge you to read it, and then you could cut a lot of that. Obviously it would be a different story completely, but like following Hal's perspective like 90% of the way or something could make it a lot more enjoyable to me.
I think the farther and farther away from the, like I said last time, we talked about the structure of the novel. The farther and farther away we get from, I guess, the first layer of the Sierpinski triangle that we get, and how these smaller and smaller and smaller and more tertiary stories are related to people who are related to who are people related to, and whose themes resemble the ones who are going on the main story. The less necessary they become. Not that there aren't some really good ones there, but I don't think they're all home runs.
Yeah, like the one that comes to mind for me is the one that's just like it's in I think the first section where it's just someone is clearly high and they're talking about poor Tony.
I think that might be Wardine. Is it an AAVE section?
I don't remember because it was just like it just felt like complete nonsense to me the whole way through, and nothing about.
I actually really like Poor Tony and his sections, but like most of the group surrounding Poor Tony and Wardine and they're related to some people who are inside the Internet House, drug and alcohol recovery house. Those are probably my least favorite parts, and I think aren't as important.
Yeah, like I get he was going for a maximalist thing and just throwing everything in the story. But yeah, at the same time, like I really wish he'd kept it. Like I don't feel like those sections added anything for me at all. Certainly not enough to counteract the deeply unpleasant style in which they were written, or at least that one section I'm thinking about right now was written, where it's just like this person is clearly like not in their right mind, not able to string together coherent sentences, and I just have to read like pages and pages of it.
I think the only thing that I would take from it is that these people that like they don't know, and you can see how it affects their lives by affecting somebody else's life to affect somebody else's life. But again, like you said, you just take out that last chunk of the line, and it's still this person affected me versus this person affected this person affected this person affected me. You just keep it a little cleaner, but I mean, yeah.
Say on a reread, the footnotes become more interesting. I'd say my first time through, I enjoyed the novelty of the footnotes, and they made me laugh, especially sometimes the way that they were written. But I didn't really get most of them. I shouldn't say it. I got the long ones that are like the conversation between Oren and Hal, or the expose inside the magazine. But like the filmography, for example, like the first time through, I was just like, why is this here? Filmography's great the second time. Because you know all these movies already, and then you could find little jokes inside them.
I'll trust you on that.
I don't think I would get anything new out of the ones that are just explaining the acronyms, especially the ones that explain the drugs.
The drug acronyms.
Oh God.
No, the drugs ones or the acronym ones are just there to irritate you. I'm convinced. And it's just there to make you flip to the back of the book and go back and stop the narrative in its tracks. In fact, I think if I read it again, I'm just gonna skip all of the drugs. not even gonna bother to go in the back. Just like I don't care.
Well, yeah, they don't functionally change the story in any way. Knowing the name of a drug versus not knowing it doesn't impact anything.
It depends what you mean by story, but yes, I agree. It does. It
In the
does
most
change the
loosest
reader's
sense.
subject. Yeah, it does
Yeah.
definitely change the reader's subjective experience of the story, though.
I'm thinking back on the section, and I actually kind of am uncertain as to what even happened in it, because it felt like mentally this section to me was like maybe 10% of the actual story. Like I guess there was like a truly absurd amount of time spent with Gately in the hospital bed, not able to talk to anybody. But and there was some time spent with Hal, but like the narrative felt like it would like pretty much ground to a halt after the third section was like picking up, and then it just kind of stopped here.
Yeah, that was the climax of the story when Gately got stabbed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really did feel like that. Well,
And everything after that was Hal recovering from, or not recovering, but dealing with his marijuana withdrawals, and Gately recovering from getting shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The section where they were discussing the ad campaign that they were gonna do to warn children about the Infinite Jest, that was actually hilarious. They props
That was really
for
funny.
that.
Yeah.
It was like
What was that donkey's name? The mule.
the fully functional mule. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
And of course, they needed corporate sponsorship for the PSA.
But of course.
Yeah, it was like they could, since all the animals were copyrighted, they could either choose a mule or like a cockroach.
That's funny. I was gonna say it was a bold choice to, like you said, Ash. We're rising. We hit the climax, which we don't know is the climax because we're not like expecting it at this point. And then it's a bold choice to choose to go to the man who can't communicate, locked in a bed, recovering from his wounds for most of the rest of it.
He doesn't get better.
Yeah, I mean, it's just he can't communicate, so you can't use him to like push it. It's mainly just like him being, hallucinating, going in and out of consciousness, and then talking to a wraith, getting to explain things. And it's like, well, this is a choice we made. We're here.
Yeah, he doesn't even talk with the Wraith for very long.
No,
Yeah.
it's not that long. No,
Yeah.
it's people visiting him. Him learning about the people in the alcohol and drug recovery house. Him dealing with the doctors, which I thought was hilarious, actually. Especially when he grabs the doctor by the balls. He just wouldn't stop bothering him about taking drugs. Lots of flashbacks. Lots of
A lot of flashbacks.
a lot of his dreams actually felt like I don't know, Book of the New Sun dreams to me.
There was him
Really?
recognizing somebody and then remarking on how he recognized that person for like another page. And I was like, this is riveting storytelling. Like, you recognize that person and now you're telling me about it some more. But what else you got to do when you can't do anything in a bed? Like, you got to think about that kind of thing.
I really like that section.
Well, somebody has to.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else?
I'm
I
left.
thought I had something marked, but I don't, so.
I'm left uncertain as to how I actually feel about Hal at the end of this. I reread the first section. I was like, I remembered why I initially liked Hal a lot, and
But his internal perspective in the very first section is great.
Yeah, that's why I
Right.
said the DMC seemed to knock him out of his funk, and he seems a lot more expressive, at least interiorly.
Internally.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not.
I think it's quite a gap between like his first person perspective at the end of the book and his perspective at the beginning of the book. And I don't think it's an entirely negative experience at all, even though he literally is unfunctional.
Would you say it was worth the trade for him to feel more like mentally aware than lose his physical ability to communicate? But he's
For me, I would say
internally
no,
okay?
but I guess you'd have to ask Hal.
Yeah, since Hal doesn't exist, what do you think? For
Personally,
Hal,
I would
you
say
or
no.
Hal? I mean,
For Hal, maybe. I mean, he was in a really dark spot.
he was in like a
Good
seemingly
word.
hopeless spot, I guess.
If the theory If JOI's plan actually works, all he needs to do is get the Infinite Jest.
I mean, do you think he's bound to just see it at some point or not? With how much it's being propagated?
I think if you look for it, you could find it. Seemed to be everywhere at some point. Well, what do you think happened to Kate?
I think she watched it.
I don't think she did.
I think she did.
Well, she's not mentioned among any of the victims of the AFR.
No,
Like,
but she also just
subjective.
doesn't show up in the story again, eh?
That's true. Yes,
Yeah.
but I don't. I think if we're given people who are being experimented on by the AFR, and she's not mentioned.
I
So I
think
just
what
assume that's what happened. Also,
Well,
because
that's
she was
who-
incredulous, she's like, "You're just lying to me. I'm not gonna believe you." And I
Is
know
that
I
who
took her
we're
at her
at?
word that she actually literally wouldn't believe him.
Was that who Morath was trying to get to watch the video, or was that just somebody else that he was
Yeah.
trying to? That
He met
was
her in a
cool.
bar, and he's like, "You look like my wife." She's like, "Oh, that's nice. My wife doesn't have
Right,
a
and-
skull. That's disgusting."
That was so weird too. The whole I loved my wife from the moment I saw her. She was in a coma, no skull, couldn't do anything. What did you love about her? You couldn't even say hi to her and have a response. You just got to try. I mean, whatever it was.
yeah, they got married.
Yeah,
And
but
then
that's messed up.
I'm like, who's allowing a marriage to a coma person? It's like marrying a corpse.
Right?
A guy who ran in front of a train to cripple himself so that he could join a separatist terrorist organization. That's who.
I know, but he's not officiating his own wedding. I was baffled by his definition of love, which was clearly not love.
No, he's messed up. I'm with Kate in that conversation.
I actually
Yeah.
did highlight one of the quotes that seems pertinent to this discussion. I forget who's exactly talking about it. It's Hal. It now lately sometimes seemed like a kind of black miracle to me that people could actually care deeply about a subject or pursuit, and could go on caring this way for years on end. Could dedicate their entire lives to it. It seemed admirable at the same time pathetic. We are all dying to give our lives away to something, maybe. God or Satan, politics or grammar, topology or philate? The object seemed incidental to this will to give oneself away, utterly, to games or needles, to some other person. Something pathetic about it. A flight from in the form of plunging into. Flight from exactly what? These rooms blandly filled with excrement and wheat? To what purpose? This was why they started us here so young. To give ourselves away before the age when the questions why and to what grow real beaks and claws. It was kind, in a way.
Good quote. Yeah.
So, Morath, he just needed to give himself to something, and this is someone who's not going to be able to reject him or disappoint him in any ways.
I mean, she could have disappointed him by dying at literally any time.
That's true.
No, that's yeah. You reading that quote made me wonder if just Hal had been self-medicating his depression with marijuana, and that also helped hurt him, at the end when he took off of it.
Yeah, he was able to dissociate from his desire to do these things and perhaps a desire to connect to anybody. But yeah, without this distance, then it just the existence that he had seemed, I guess, just too unbearable. Maybe that's something that James Infinte himself felt as well.
I imagine so.
Yeah.
So, how many Hamlet parallels can you point out?
Well, Ash mentioned one, so I'm going to say one that I can point out. Having never actually read or watched Hamlet. So,
Really? Okay.
yeah. It's just I've seen The Lion King. Does that count?
Yeah,
Yeah, kind of.
it does.
Then I guess I've seen The Lion King.
He even holds a skull.
Yeah. There's definitely something rotten in the state of Denmark here. It doesn't seem to me that Hal has a messed up relationship with his own mother, the way that Hamlet does.
Well, he has a different
No.
messed up relationship with his mom,
Other than her being completely and totally overbearing.
but not overbearing at the same time.
Overbearing
Overbearing.
in
Want
how
to
much she
improve.
isn't overbearing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Her relationship with Oren's a lot more toxic.
Yeah, it seems like it. I don't think Hal fakes being crazy, right? He's just actually crazy at the end. He doesn't have.
He's indecisive.
Yeah, he is indecisive. Yeah, that's true. He spends almost the entire book doing nothing, essentially. He doesn't have any relationships with any women.
Maybe a hero of inaction. He doesn't have. He's asexual.
Yeah, so Hamlet has Ophelia, and
Yeah,
I don't know. I guess maybe Kate Gompert is the Ophelia of the story. I don't know. Or maybe Joelle.
And no one kills themselves, though.
No. But, I mean, it's ambiguous whether Kate Gompert
dies
at the end.
There's the Wraith,
Hal?
who is the main character's father.
Yes. There's Charles Tavis,
Charles
obviously.
Tavis. Yeah.
There is Avril giving away the keys to the kingdom, which is, in this sense, is just the tennis academy to Charles Tavis.
Now, in your Hamlet referencing here, who does Gately equate to here?
That one's hard. I don't think it's possible because, like, I think the Hamlet stays inside the family.
Is there anybody in Hamlet who lays in a bed and doesn't get better?
No, I don't think so.
Well, sorry,
Maybe
Gately,
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern die on the ship laying down.
Well, I was trying to push it and help you guys, but my sources run dry.
Charles Tavis also channels Polonius because, incredibly long-winded guy who's just gonna say anything and maybe spy on people. I don't know.
Maybe not. Maybe yes. I don't know. That's remind me at the beginning of the book / the end. Is that a thing that Hal wanted to do of his own, get into that school, or was that also because, like you saying, he doesn't make a whole lot of decisions, but I was wondering if perhaps that was one of the first decisions he's really making for himself, or which would be after the Infinite Jest, when he'd been kind of given that more back to him. Although he did make the decision to smoke marijuana and hide it, be addicted to that part of it, but
That's a very good question. I don't know.
I don't think he's able to communicate any decisions that he does make at that point.
He seems to have gotten better at tennis, though.
somehow.
Is he better than John Wayne at the end?
That's a good question. I don't know. And what's up with John Wayne?
He's a double agent, right?
I think he's a double agent, or at least his allegiances shifted at some point because he was the plant from the AFR inside the tennis academy, but he's doing lookout for Gately and Hal at the end when they're digging up JOI's grave in Canada.
in like New Canada. in the section of Canada that oscillates violently between being completely desolate and way overgrown. I don't even they would have to dig so far for that.
So this is I don't think I told you guys this, but when I was first reading it, first started the book, and we learned that Hal can't speak and he can't communicate, and they're all freaking out about it. I'm like, okay, and then it goes back and it's still on Hal, I believe, or the next scene later on is back on Hal, and everybody was talking with him like normal, and he was talking, and I was just like, oh, these people, like, Hal just can't talk. I thought he couldn't talk the whole time, and everybody else around him in this tennis group was just like, oh yeah, he's grunting and moaning, but I just understand what he's saying. And then I realized later on, oh wait, no, this is not, I did understand, but for the first little bit I was very like, okay, this is,
I think I might have thought the same thing actually.
I was thinking the same thing.
Was a fast forward
when there was the flashback to when JOI was doing his psychiatrist thing with him.
Oh yeah.
Which I don't know, given how tall and distinctive JOI looks, I don't know how he ever thought that would work.
He's an alcoholic. I don't know.
I
mean, he was wearing his trademark vest as well.
A lot of people think a lot of things work when they're clearly, obviously not going to work.
It's true. He had that fake mustache.
And according to JOI, Hal couldn't talk then, not in a meaningful way, at least.
Yeah. It seems to me that perhaps JOI's way of seeing the world was he didn't see the literal truth, but he saw the metaphorical truth. So he saw that Hal was not able to talk. He wasn't able to communicate what he was actually thinking. He was just kind of saying words out loud that didn't correspond to how he feels or any deep truth inside. And then that's all that JOY is
Empty
able
words,
to perceive. Yeah.
Oh, the Infinite Jest itself is from a line of Hamlet.
Oh.
I don't remember who they're talking about, but I believe Hamlet refers to a character, and he says a man of infinite jest or something like that.
Oh, it's probably Yorick,
Could be.
the dead
Yeah.
jester. Yeah.
Poor Yorick Entertainment's also a place that
Yeah.
has a lot of the cartridges in the book.
100% sounds right. That's great.
Hal and Hamlet are obviously both students.
And they both start with H.
Yeah.
This one I had to look up, but apparently the opening line of Hamlet is "Who's there?" and Infinite Jest starts with "I am."
Huh. So maybe, yeah, I guess that's a point for the theory that JOY is possessing Hal.
I don't know. I don't like that theory. It seems a lot more ominous. I prefer the optimistic theory that Hal just hasn't seen the Infinite Jest yet. That's all he needs.
I thought it was
I
interesting.
I mean,
Yeah.
JOY is obviously a bad father, but I also think that he was actually trying to be a better father, which is also kind of why I like the idea that CT killed him. Not only because of the Hamlet references.
If he was to possess Hal, how is he helping Hal be a better person, or like help Hal by living Hal's life for him?
Yeah, that's my
Right.
point. I don't think he is.
Yeah. No, I'm agreeing with you. Like, it doesn't, from him trying to be a better dad, taking over your son's life, as or living through your child, metaphorically or physically as a wraith, it's not really helpful.
Yeah, it's not helpful. It's just negative. But like his father kind of lived through his son vicariously too.
Yeah. Obviously a lot of parents try to live vicariously through their children and delude themselves into thinking that this is actually what's best for the child. So maybe that's what's going on. I don't know.
Well, maybe that's why he committed suicide and wrote the Infinite Jest to break the cycle, so he wouldn't live his life through Hal.
Yeah, I mean he didn't know about the wraith existence.
yeah, maybe he didn't know about that until after that happened.
Well, what was the reason that the wraith was sticking around? Just like unfinished business, the classic wraith thing.
Unfinished business. I think he was trying to help Hal.
Gotcha.
Like that's why he was getting with Gately, and I think he wanted Gately to help get the Infinite Jest, which is why he's showing visions of the future, and I think that's why he was possessing Stice as well, so he could interface with Hal.
With Hal.
That's my opinion.
Ruin Stice's life, but help Hal.
Poor Stice. The darkness. This is why I love this book, because I don't know, we could talk about it, and we don't really have any real answers. Just theories that we could.
There are a lot of memorable moments in the book that are worthy of discussing and worthy of revisiting. Perhaps like a curated list of these.
Read this one section on this one page, and then we'll discuss that. Yeah.
I have a feeling.
Just read this.
I have a feeling, Ash, that this book's gonna stick with you for a while.
I'm sure it will. Yeah, absolutely. And then I'll think about rereading and think, oh, it's too long. I'll like reread the Poor Tony sections and think, why did I decide to reread this? Jesus.
All you got to do is just open up your ebook editor and just like strike through all those lines. And then you go, oh, this is the strike through section. I'm just good to go past this and not worry about it anymore.
Yeah, like at the end I will remove like 40% of the book.
Oh, that's unfair.
I mean, you get rid of the drug names. That's at least like 3, right?
I think that's an exaggeration, but yeah, it is quite a bit. Notice I think towards the end, I think a lot of the footnotes are pretty front loaded.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more in the beginning, it feels like.
And then a lot more before the climax. Like I said it last section, but like right before the climax, it's just like footnote.
I was glad to see that they are cautiously restarting Eschaton.
Oh, I must have missed that.
It's like a supervised thing now.
Oh. It's just like one. I guess they chose to retaliate, so it's all their fault. But still, like, also there's a lot of like angst and a lot of resentment building up for all these students inside the academy. So I guess it's inevitable. But still, just don't fight. Don't throw people's heads into televisions.
I mean, that was deserved.
No, you know it wasn't, and I know you're just being facetious.
Listen, if you're playing board games, you can't just hit people, you know? That's what happens. And you can't allow people to hit people either.
What if that's part of the rules of the board game, Ash?
It's probably a bad
It's a
board
bad
game
board
then.
game to
Yeah.
thought first, but like,
I mean, if JOI was so worried about inauthentic expression, I think that game of Eschaton was a game of very authentic expression. Why didn't he just, like, become a boxer? Or, like, get into pub fights or something?
pub fights.
Given the fact that he's, like, 7.5 feet tall or something, he would probably be pretty good at them.
Yeah, probably imposing dude. Oh, shall we end it here?
Yeah. I would say my final thought is if you're going to willfully subject yourself to this book, it's much better when you have 2 or 3 people to talk about it with.
Yes.
But read shorter sections. So I wouldn't read a third of the book and then a third of the book and then
you need to take time with it, yeah.
Yeah, I'd go 5% and then discuss. Because then you can remember everything. Because I swear half the time we're talking and I'm like, I don't remember talking about that. But then oh yeah, I do remember that. And then I'm like, oh yeah, and this other section back here. But I think if you get it smaller chunks and with people where you can actually talk and discuss, makes it a lot better than just reading it on your own.
Yeah, I think a reading group would be good. What are those things? Book club? I think this would be a good book club book. But the problem is getting a book club to agree on such a long book and then not having most of the people drop out 10% in.
Yeah. You can
having it go long enough, because most book clubs read like a book a month.
Yeah.
And then they finish the book and discuss versus like, we're only going to read 10% this month and you'll need the whole month to get there and then discuss, right? Like, it's a very dedicated.
A college course would be fun, I think.
I'm sure there are college courses on this book. Yeah. It would have to it would have to be a seminar course for me to take it seriously. You should suggest it to that group that took like 30 years to read Finnegan's Wake.
I think they restarted though.
Did they restarted?
Why would you restart a book you spent 30 years reading?
Yeah, once they finished reading it, they restarted it.
No book is that good.
We need to have a serious discussion with these people. Really get them some better books in their life. Like,
okay, I read Finnegan's Wake last year. I can't say I liked it. I'll just stop there. I am rereading it though, and I find it very, very, very interesting, but not enjoyable.
You liked it enough to reread it. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, sure, if you want to interpret it like that. if you think this book is difficult, you should just look at page 1 of that one. I'm not kidding. After this is finished, go look up page 1 of Finnegan's Wake and tell me what you think.
I was thoroughly turned off of the idea of reading it.
Is there anything else you want to say about this book before we finish? Do you want to talk about its reputation at least?
Sure.
I wanted to ask our listeners for what their impressions of what they think about the book, having not read it, and then what they think is the greater reputation of the book, and we could discuss whether those are fair or unfair, or even just a more nuanced take on that. But I forgot.
I mean, from what I know, the reputation of this book is that it's one of those things that people like to have on their coffee table and brag about having read, but not actually having read it.
That's common. A lot of people say that, yeah.
Which is, I think, hilarious given what the book is actually concerned about. That's like almost perfectly ironic.
Yeah.
I don't think the book is pretentious. I think like, for all its faults, David Foster Wallace was being earnest with it and like genuinely trying to communicate something with people and not just being like, oh, I'm so smart. Look at all these smart things I can do, everybody. Watch me dance. I think it was him.
And he was also very self-deprecating.
Exactly, yeah. And like, yeah, he takes the piss out of himself constantly in this book, which I appreciate.
Yeah. I think the reputation that I'd heard about it, before I started reading it, was just that it was an intensely difficult book to read and like almost antagonistic towards the reader.
Those are both fair.
Yeah. And I agree with what Ash was saying, that for the most part, to me, it does seem like he's being very earnest. I think there's a lot of better ways he could have done it, but that's my that's my philosophy, and I can't speak for him and say that it's wrong the way he did it. Right? He did it the way he wanted, and it doesn't feel like he's being like you said, Ash, like he is earnest. It feels like, for the most part, that's yeah. But yeah, antagonistic and just like purposefully convoluted and misleading, which it is. Like,
I think he was successful in writing the book that he wanted to write. For the most part, like I gave some criticisms earlier, and I might change my mind on a further reread, but that's not coming for a long time. But yeah, I think he was very competent and wrote it in the exact way that he wanted to, for the most part. There's also a group of people who hate the Infinite Jest as a hyper masculine. I think there's a group of people who says like don't sleep with men who have a copy of Infinite Jest in our house, and some of this toxic relationship with women.
I don't really see that, honestly.
I don't see any healthy relationships with women in the book, but I don't see it as a marker of I'm a bad person in a relationship to be in a relationship with.
I do think it's a very masculine book, and that's why it's not as popular with women.
I suppose. I think that there are like well-written female characters in it.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, like interesting ones.
Avril and Jolene and Kate
and Joelle and
yeah.
So,
but they are all kind of side characters.
USS Millicent Kent.
Yeah, they're all side characters, but like I don't think that the book itself has toxic attitudes towards women or like is trying to make you think toxic things about women.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
Yeah, so I think that's an unfair. I think that's an unfair stance to take.
I think that's also a lot of projections going on to what kind of people read the book.
Yeah, or the kind of people that pretend to read the book, at least. I don't.
Yeah, that's probably more like it.
Like I have a hard time imagining someone who like actually read and really likes the book being like super misogynistic.
Well, I mean, even DFW is pretty terrible to the women in his life. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. This is the reputation.
People can have many facets of their relationship while condemning actions in other people that they know are wrong, while excusing the same actions in themselves or same thoughts and patterns. We're complex.
Yeah.
So shall we end there?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
All right. So before we end, I would like to extend a very large thank you to my co-hosts for letting me do this. Since reading this, I've always wanted to talk about it in this format. So thank you, especially thank you, Cesky, because I know how much you hated it.
Yeah.
It seems you're a little less negative this episode, at least.
Well, probably just because I didn't understand it. I'd say I don't hate this book as much because it's so competently done, but it's on a personal enjoyment level, it's near a zero. But on a skillful technical level, it's up there, and so I can appreciate it for what it is without enjoying it.
Honestly, Cesky, that's more than I expected.
It's also helpful when it's already over and you don't have to go back to reading it after you finish recording.
It's much easier when you're looking back to say, yes, I remember those times. They were, the nostalgia glasses slide on automatically, and you're like, I'm done with it now.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm glad we did this. I think that was a valuable experience, even if it wasn't like my favorite book. I think that I'm going to be thinking about it for a long time afterwards.
I am glad you invited me. So
I can't believe you accepted and stuck with it.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned the valuable lesson of you should have DNF'd it. So we'll see.
I was actually considering like, who would I recommend this book to? I actually have no idea. Even when I'm thinking, like, when I'm having conversations with people, I think, this would be a conversation where it would actually be helpful if we had both read Infinite Jest. Even in that I mention the book sometimes, and you probably shouldn't read it, but for what it's worth, Infinite Jest deals with this topic.
Yeah.
I think if I met somebody who likes Ulysses as much as I do, I might recommend this.
Yeah. My first instinct is to recommend it to people who like difficult books or tougher books, more like Gene Wolfe and such. But then I'm like, well, I don't think they'd actually like it, even if just because they like Gene Wolfe and harder books. I can't think of anybody in that group who would also really like this one, aside from you, Huron.
Yeah, I mean, Gene Wolfe
Yeah.
is easier because he's like, even though his books are very smart, they're also very readable, and generally not
It's
very
just
long.
different. They're similar but not.
Yeah, some parts aren't.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so that has been this episode. No more episodes on Infinite Jest. I'm sorry for the 3 listeners who are tuning in just for these ones.
Maybe 3 years from
Um,
now.
No, not gonna happen.
without Jesky. I don't know. Maybe we could convince you.
Yeah, maybe like the mold, this will grow inside you, and
Eventually drive me crazy and unable to communicate about anything else.
yeah, you'll just be
But
forced to talk
the
about
only way to
Infinite
solve
Jest.
it is by talking about the Infinite Jest with us again.
Yeah.
It'll start out
We'll
with
check back in.
your grunting and animal sounds and then flailing your arms around, and it'll end with you having a coherent conversation.
That would be quite the change.
It's a nice thought.
All right, so thank you. This has been Hurin and Ash and Chesky. Join us in the Legendary Discord if you want to talk about this. Me and Ash will probably be the only ones that will, interface with you, but it'll be fun.
I'll commiserate with you.
Thank you for the Legendarium world, and thank you for the music, Jingle Punks. That's everything. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.